Hi, welcome to Advantage. I'm Dr. Jody Richardson Delgado. Today we're talking about human development, and we're going to specifically talk about cognitive development and Piaget's theories of cognitive development. So Piaget came up with a stage model of development because he noticed through his own children and observing the world around him that children think differently at different stages of their development. So he took his observations and he studied them in the laboratory. And he looked at the qualitative and quantitative changes that we develop over our childhood. He looked at the idea of schemas, as well as assimilation and accommodation. Now, schemas are a basic unit of intellect. It's a cognitive structure of ideas that are affected by our experience. So we have a structure that's based on our experience of how the world works, and it changes and develops over time. And sometimes we develop whole new schemas, again, depending on our experience. So we can assimilate ideas, and this is applying existing schemas to new information, and new information is incorporated or assimilated into our existing schema. Or we can accommodate, and this is adjusting existing schemas or developing new ones to fit with new information. So, for example, my kids, when they were born, we had a huge Labrador retriever. He was about 95 pounds. And that was their idea of a dog, right? So dog was a big black 95-pound lab. And let's say one day I take them to the park and they have to figure out, okay, I see all these other little creatures running around and they're small and white and have curly hair and are little tiny poodles. And so maybe my child looks and says, okay, what is that? And I say, oh, that's a dog. So now they have to fit their schema to fit a 95-pound black lab as well as this tiny little poodle that fits into the category of dog. Now we go to the zoo. So we see a horse and my child has to say dog, right? They're going to apply their existing schema to this horse. And I say, no, honey, that's not a dog, that's a horse. And maybe I have to point out some of the slight differences that we see in horses versus dogs. So now we have to create a whole new schema for this new category of animal. That's kind of how schemas work as we grow and develop. Some of the other things that Piaget gave to us in his research is this idea of the stages of development. He was the first individual to take some of the idea of the stage model from Freud and apply it to our cognition. So the first stage is sensory motor, and this is from 0 to 2 years of age. Some of the major milestones that we have during this period of time are object permanence, and also we use our senses to explore the world around us. So the idea of object permanence is understanding that objects are permanent in the world around me. So achieving object permanence means that I will look for things even after they are out of sight. So you've heard the term out of sight, out of mind. That is literally what happens to a baby. So you take their favorite toy, let's say it's a rattle, and you shake it in front of their face, and then you hide that rattle behind their back. If they look for it, they have achieved object permanence. When they don't look for it, it's just disappeared. Then they have not achieved object permanence. This is one of the reasons why peekaboo is so exciting and so fun for small infants, because mommy's there, mommy's not there, mommy's there. So as soon as the blanket or something covers mommy's face, she's disappeared, and then suddenly she appears again. So object permanence is a major milestone for sensory motor development. The next stage is preoperational stage, and this is from ages 2 to 7. Some of the major milestones and major features of this stage include egocentrism, as well as being able to think symbolically. Egocentrism is the idea that the whole world revolves around me and I have the only perspective. So I don't have the ability from age 2 to about 7 to take on the perspective of another individual or another kid my age. So if I want to play with a toy, and I see a child with a toy that I want to play with, and I take that toy away from that child, I don't understand why that child is upset because I'm happy because I have the toy that I want to play with. I'm also not able to think into the future in terms of if I take this toy from another child, it might upset them. So taking on the perspective of another child is nearly impossible at this stage, which is one of the reasons why you'll see rules and discipline different for younger children than you do in older children. So preschool rules are going to be different than middle school rules. Also, we're starting to be able to think symbolically. So things like shapes and letters start to make sense at this stage. This is where you see starting to understand things like the alphabet, and we're starting to introduce reading at this stage. Concrete operations is the next stage, and this is ages 7 to 11 years of age. Now we're starting to understand complex classification as well as conservation. Now with conservation, this is understanding that the same matter or the same liquid, whatever it is in the world, is the same no matter if I have it in a long, skinny, tall glass or a short, fat glass. If I pour the liquid 5 ounces from one container to another container, it might look different in that container, but in fact it's still 5 ounces of liquid, and I can see that when you pour one from the other. This is something that is achieved in concrete operations that is not achieved in pre-operations. The last stage of development is formal operations, and this is achieved at about 12 years of age. This is where we are able to start thinking hypothetically, so into the future. If I have these actions now, what might happen in the future? We're also able to start thinking rationally, and we're able to solve much more complex logic problems. Now, when we look at Piaget's theory, we see that there are 4 stages in this theory. And we do see that they do occur in the same order cross-culturally. Many, though, acquire these skills much earlier than what Piaget reported originally. Also, some of the limitations of this theory is that Piaget stops at age 12. And I think many of us can think about how we changed our thought from middle school all the way to college and beyond. Our thinking does grow and change from 12 years into adulthood. So these are some of the criticisms of Piaget's theory. I hope this video has helped. Please click on the Advantage logo to subscribe.